lot of people that get into the bulk game, Joji, and I'll tell you, this is a mistake. We could talk more about this. Like, we're getting into it now, man.
Yeah.
We could talk more about this in the conference, but a lot of people approach the bulk game as if the craziest thing I've ever found in my entire career as a bookseller, let's say, right, is...
What's going on, everyone? In today's podcast interview, I'm extremely excited to bring on FBA Dave. Dave is a 7-figure Amazon bulk book business seller, and he's actually going to be a speaker at the Books and Beyond Resellers Conference happening this September 13th through 15th in Las Vegas, Nevada. He basically joins an insane list of about 20 speakers, and the best way to scale your business is to be around like-minded individuals who are doing the numbers you want to do. So incredibly excited that Dave is going to be there, and I also wanted to shed light on his business model. So with that said, what's going on, Dave?
How you doing, Joji? Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So again, you're a bulk book business, Amazon FBA bulk book seller, 7-figure seller. That means you're doing well over $1 million in revenue per year. And I kind of just want to break down, some general questions if anyone wants to go into that bulk business route.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. Yeah.
So first question for you is, people are going to ask, well, how the heck do you get all of this inventory? So could you just briefly tell us, how often do you get inventory in? How much inventory, just so people have an idea of scale?
Right. So it's really going to depend on, so within the bulk book business model, there's actually a lot of variation on how you can run it. Okay. So a lot of people they go through as many barcodes as they can, and whatever is not a barcode goes to the wayside or monetize in a different way. Right. So it's going to really depend on how deep you monetize. For us, we monetize roughly about 7 levels deep. By doing so, it allows us to decrease the actual amount of gaylords that we need to hit the certain quotas. But at the same time, you also have to make sure that your process is really efficient, or you're going to be burning a lot of labor, right?
Yeah.
So to answer your question, for us and my model specifically, we go through roughly about 2 truckloads a month. So that's roughly about 100 gaylords a month is what we go through.
And just to give people, I know what a gaylord is, but people who listen to this might not know what that is. What exactly is gaylord, and how many books can fit in that?
So gaylord is just this huge cardboard box, and they go ahead and dump all the books in there, and that's roughly between 700 to 1,000 books is what it amounts to.
So about 2 truckloads a month, and how many gaylords can fit on a truck, you said?
Roughly about 50.
50 gaylords, okay. And you go 7 levels deep. So we'll definitely...
7 levels deep, yeah.
7 levels deep. So that's beyond just the barcode. So everyone out there, if you look at a book, right, obviously most books have a barcode. So Dave isn't just scanning the barcode, or if, let's say, the book doesn't have a barcode, he isn't just recycling it or sending it off to someone. Awesome. Now, how do you decide when you are going through this process, whether, through the 7 steps, how do you decide FBA versus FBM?
So it's going to depend on, right. A lot of it's going to depend on your software, what you use to scan. A lot of people are very familiar with Scout IQ and some of the other Scout Lead, some of the other softwares on there. So you can set that up to kind of do like a comparison. If you send it, by yourself, merchant fulfilled, MF, how much profit are you going to make? Or if you send it off to FBA, how much profit would you make? And then our software just kind of compares the two in which will be the better pick, do it at MF or the FBA. I will give everybody a tip that it is not apples to apples, meaning you don't necessarily want to compare a $10 FBA profit to a $10 MF profit. You also have to factor in labor costs to ship it out, to store it, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of times I would take a lower MF profit just to move product and a higher FBA product to send it in, because that does take a little bit more effort as well.
Yeah, it makes a bunch of sense. Now, if you don't mind sharing, you don't have to share if you don't want to, but what would be your triggers in terms of what would your metrics be for accepting a book? So whether that is for Amazon FBA or for a merchant book.
Yeah, that's it's not that I don't want to give that, but it's really going to be very dependent. And we could talk about this more at the conference too. It's very dependent on, again, because there's different various ways that people monetize through the bulk book model. Okay.
Right.
That really defines how you're going to be setting up your triggers. Okay. Right. So for an example, if you have a bulk business and, it's I want to keep my labor costs low and I just want to send everything to FBA, I don't want to have an MF operation. That's a very different set of triggers than somebody that's just doing the complete opposite of, I just want all MF books and I don't want FBA at all. Right. So all that is going to matter. We take a look at everything, obviously, for FBA right now because of a lot of storage fees. You have the 6-month storage fees, 1-year storage fees, 9 months, whatever it is. We try to get things moving as fast as possible. So usually those have a pretty high sales rank, low E score, however you,
Okay.
the other way around.
Yeah. Really low sales rank. Yeah, I know what you mean. The book that
Yeah.
sells more quickly. Right.
Yes, the books that sell as fast is usually what we send to FBA.
Okay. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And in terms of the software you're using, like most people who do the thrift model will use Scout IQ or Scally, although I don't think that is the software that bulk business, bulk booksellers would use. So, I mean, are you using one of the softwares or you use a completely different software?
So I'm using completely different software. And these guys, they really haven't. So I can't really talk about which software that I
Okay.
kind of use, right?
Okay.
But let's put it this way: it costs a lot of money. I'll tell you how much it cost me. If you
Yeah.
want to know.
Yeah. That'd be amazing. People would love to know.
So my software suite runs me roughly about $2,200 a month.
$2,200 a month. Okay.
A month.
Pretty good chunk of change there. All right.
That's
And
a pretty good chunk of change.
And
Yeah.
that's before and we'll talk about this later. That's before we talk about how much it costs to have, let's say, a warehouse, how much employees cost, all of that other operating expenses.
Oh,
So
absolutely. All of
appreciate
that.
the transparency, by the way. You don't have to do this, but
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
fine. But just for people to understand, if you
Yeah.
get into this, I mean,
You'll be making some money.
deep
You'll
into
be
this.
selling some books. Right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here now. $2,200 a month is
Yeah.
a lot of money for software.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to let everyone know, you can find FBA Dave on Instagram. That's his tag. And so we'll link that down below. He's got a really, I think, pretty funny, honestly, like pretty funny Instagram reels. I think it's kind of hilarious, honestly, but great content as well. You don't have a YouTube channel, I don't believe, but you do have Instagram. So everyone could check, FBA Dave out there. But
Yeah.
this question for you here is,
Yeah.
any business model is going to have duds, even if you go through 7 layers. Just some books are just not worth anything. So, what is the means for getting rid of the duds?
So the seventh layer, the very last layer of our monetization is actually the duds.
Okay.
Okay, so a lot of people, depending, are not able to do this, but if you can swing it, if you can build a good relationship, okay, you can find people that would buy your duds, and we sell our duds by the truckload.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
So
by the truckload. Okay. And is that like I'm assuming, is it a per Gaylord cost or is it a per pound?
it's a per pound cost. It's a per pound cost, right?
Okay.
So all that is gone per truckload, and that helps us recoup some of our inventory costs as well.
One thing that I think you will find interesting is I've recently interviewed 2 whatnot booksellers that are
Ooh.
going to be at the Books and Beyond Resellers Conference, and they monetize a bunch of books that are not worth anything, like on Amazon.
Yes.
It was so cool because like, okay, we'll take this book that might sell on Amazon. It's got a great sales rank, but it might sell on Amazon for $6, and then we'll pop it up and whatnot for a couple of bucks, and it'll sell. Like, so it's a really cool model. So I'm excited for you as well, to meet the other, people doing other models.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So that would be really exciting. Now, I'm assuming you sell textbooks, but just, wanting to know, if you do sell textbooks, how do you vet them? Because one of the biggest problems with online book arbitrage or just selling books on Amazon in general is the fact that counterfeit books do pose a serious risk to your account. So if you do sell textbooks, what is your sort of way for vetting them, checking for counterfeit likelihood, et cetera?
Right. So it is a little bit of a pain, and for every time that we get a textbook, every textbook we go through the counterfeit calculator from Bookstrand. Are you familiar with that?
Nice. Okay, cool. Yep.
Yeah, so that is really the only way that we can vet it. Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, during the conditioning process, my guys are trained to actually eyeball if something is like looking kind of weird, fuzzy barcodes, fuzzy print or anything like that. We just don't take a risk. If I tell them, if you see that, just toss it. It's not worth the risk, So, but largely, Bookstrand would be the biggest tool that we use in terms of vetting it. Anything that is remotely likely, don't even take the risk.
Yeah, that's a great advice there. That's the same sort of thing that I recommend to everyone on my YouTube channel. It says likely or high likely, it's not worth the risk. And Bookstrand seems to be fairly accurate. And the reason why I say that is people always, no, not always, a lot of people will contact me when they do get their account, let's say, suspended for counterfeit claims. And I always say, would you mind sharing the ASINs? And all but one book that people have shared with me have been unlikely. So in other words, pretty much every single book has been likely or highly likely on Bookstrand's counterfeit or, likelihood calculator. So
Exactly.
And then also, are you restricted in the popular textbook category, or can you just sell any textbook?
No, I am restricted. Some of the best textbooks out there, I am still restricted. I got into the game a little late. Like 2019 is when I started my seller account.
Right.
So then obviously I fall under the restricted, but because of my volume, I do feel like I am far less restricted than a lot of other booksellers.
Yeah. One thing that I recommend for everyone out there is that when you get into the game, is actually the hardest part, ironically, because you can sell the fewest number of books. And generally, make sure you're trying to request approval. And, if you can get automatically approved by answering a few questions, then do that. Obviously, some ask for the invoice. But I mean, what I've noticed is that as you sell more books, you generally are allowed to sell more books.
Yeah.
So really important there.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you monetizing books on other websites besides just Amazon? So like, are you listed on eBay, Books, et cetera? And do you use a cross-listing software for that? Or how does that work, listing something on Books?
Right. So we do list through eBay, Books, Alibris, and also Shopify.
Okay, I've never heard of Shopify. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So we also have our own website on Shopify that we list on, and we sell through that as well.
Wow. Okay.
We had the option to also list on Chris Lance. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I haven't even heard of that.
It's very similar. It's more geared towards booksellers, but their interface was a little wonky for me. It was a little too slow to sync things correctly, so I didn't go that route. But no, the $2,200 a month software suite that I pay for encapsulates the cross listing of all that. Now, for anybody listening, like, holy crap, man, like I want to do it, but I don't want to spend $2,200 a month. There's other software out there, okay, but you have to understand that they're not made for extremely high volume. So if you have under 1,000 SKUs that you want to use, like say InkFrog is one of them, right?
Okay.
That tends to work fine.
Okay.
But any higher than that, then you need pretty high-end dynamic software to make sure you're not double selling stuff and things are not like delisted when they're supposed to, etc.
Yeah, because I imagine at scale, I mean, when things go wrong, things go really wrong because of the fact that there's just so much stuff there. So good point right there. Now, as far as those websites, I'm assuming Amazon would probably be number one. I would guess eBay's number two, but I could be wrong. Would you mind just ranking? Like, what generally tends to be best for you in revenue?
Revenue, well, I guess Amazon has the highest sales, followed by eBay, you're right. Okay. And then another couple of percentage points spread across the other ones. So that's correct. But I actually like what I see coming from eBay. eBay roughly sells about, I would say 1/3 to 50% of what Amazon sells in a certain day.
That's pretty big, actually. Yeah.
That is pretty big. And one thing I have noticed, though, is that even though it sold that amount, your net from eBay is actually a bit higher than what you get from Amazon.
Okay.
Right. So even though it sells maybe half less, if you compare the two actual down to the net, they're actually pretty close.
Wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That actually goes into my next question, which was, do you price differently on each platform because of the fee structure? I'm assuming you would, but maybe you don't. I don't know.
No, we do. And we take advantage of, we have to remain competitive being bulk sellers. One thing that you don't want to do as a bulk seller is you don't want to sit on your inventory because that's no good for you. Cash flow is already extremely tight when you're a bulk seller. Okay. Right. So you want to recuperate your cash flow as much and as often as possible. So yes, you just want to move products. So a lot of times you're super competitive. Okay. You are bidding on, $5, $6, $7 books and you don't care. Just let it fly because otherwise they're just going to recycling.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And do you use any sort of like historical data to determine like how you'd price your books? In other words, like I do online book arbitrage. So I use all historical data to determine if I'm going to buy and sell this book. Obviously at scale, that's probably not very likely, but I don't know. Maybe the software that you use does have some way to look at historical sales. So can you talk about that?
Yeah. So we do not use historical data, not in the sense that of how you do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Watching some of your videos and you keep and like you're real into it, man. You're like, well, there's that drop there. You got to nail it right there. You're real into it, and I appreciate that. But when you're processing, like scanning through 5,000 books in a day, 8,000 books in a day, it's like you don't have the time to really get through that, right? So you have to use capture data of like, well, what did it sell today? Now I can go back 6 months and see what's the highest point in 6 months. But again, if there was a Christmas book, that flows down the line for me, and it's not quite Christmas yet, but guess what? I'm not going to hold it until Christmas. Because again, a lot of times it's really I need to move it. I move 50% of what we input, okay, within the first month. That's so 50% of my inventory is sold within the first month, and then the other 50% is spread, over the course of the next 6 months.
Wow. Okay.
Right.
That's massive. Yeah.
That's how it's supposed to work. But a lot of people that get into the bulk game, Joji, and I'll tell you, this is a mistake. We could talk more about this. Like, we're getting into it now, man.
Yeah.
We could talk more about this in the conference, but a lot of people approach the bulk game as if they were cherry picking
Okay.
They have that cherry picking mentality, the cherry picking triggers and cherry picking payout. It's not the same. It's
Yeah.
completely not the same. So that needs to change.
Yeah. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And the reason why online book arbitrage sellers can thrive is because of that mentality of your model is sell the most books as possible.
Right.
Our model's like sell our books for the most amount as possible. Right.
Exactly.
So they're two different models, but it allows us to thrive because, hey, if you're willing to bring down the price of a book with another large textbook seller or large book seller, then hey, I can help you both out by buying both of those copies, and I can wait on it for 4 months and sell it for what it's actually worth.
Exactly. Right.
But that helps you out, helps me out. So it's kind of cool that we can thrive in that way.
Absolutely.
So, what about books that you've sold before? Is there a way for you to track which books you've sold before, and do you use that data at all to say, hey, we sold this book 7 times in the last year for $15?
Not really. The only time that we would use quantity data is if we wanted to cap any particular book on quantity. Right.
Okay.
So there was like kind of like a medium flowing book, it might sell like, I don't know, say like 20 copies in the 6-month span or so, right? Like that's something we want to sell, but do we want 100 copies of it? No.
No, you can. That makes
So
sense.
we might want to cap that at like 5. That's the only time that we would use quantity data. Everything else, nope. If there's no diminishing return on a book, meaning it doesn't matter if it flows fast and it doesn't matter how many copies we load up there, then we just let it rip.
Just let it rip. Just load it up. Let the stream flow.
Yeah.
Are there any bulk booksellers out there that you think are just like, I mean, you don't have to name them obviously, but any bulk booksellers out there on Amazon that are just highly competitive with repricing and just drive you insane because they're just like tanking the price of books?
Yes, there is one in particular that I will not name,
Okay.
but he's on the naughty list of a lot of myself and my colleagues.
Okay.
This particular bookseller, he just does not care, and I've seen books through this person's storefront for like under $3, which is it's just beyond me. Like it's beyond me. I can't, like, that's a money losing proposition. But you know what? They rather get the sale. Although I will say, ever since like March, when Amazon kind of like retweaked a lot of the FBA prices going inward, inbound placement fees and everything, his prices did change a good bit.
Okay.
Not so much $3, but before then though, it was bad.
Bad. Okay. And when you are doing, let's say, your pricing, is there a minimum and a maximum price? Or is it literally like we're literally willing to go as low as possible to just break even, or so what are the metrics there? Is there a minimum and maximum price, or is it just like just reprice until we get down to some default number?
So there's a stepper system, right? So, let's just say, for an example, we want to start off with a minimum profit. So it's not a minimum price, it's a minimum profit.
Okay.
So that's one big difference between softwares, is the calculation and repricing is calculation of minimum profit and not minimum price.
Okay.
So minimum profit, let's just say we want $1. Okay. If it doesn't sell within like 30 days, then maybe we just want 50 cents.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And then if it's like doesn't sell within 90 days of that, then we want like 25 cents. And then, at the point of 6 months, destroying it from Amazon actually costs money. So we want to just go, if we net zero, we net zero. That's it. We don't have to pay anything for, getting rid of it. So this kind of works like that. It's kind of like a stepper in terms of time.
Okay. That makes sense. And I'm assuming the repricer is part of this software bundle or package. Is that right?
$2,200. It better be.
There better be a repricer, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I want to make sure. And is this reprice? Do you have, let's say, any sort of like, can you adjust it in a way that you specifically wanted to, like, let's say, match buy box, or to be the lowest offer, to undercut, to match? Do you have the ability to change that? And what would you prefer as a bulk bookseller? Do you prefer to match, undercut by penny, etc.?
You can't change it. But honestly, I prefer to simply just match buy box is what I prefer.
Okay.
Buy box is basically, the highest chance that you're going to be selling a book is through buy box, right? So I try to match that. If anybody undercuts, I'm not gonna try to do the undercutting war.
Okay. That makes sense.
Interesting to note, though, the software that I use actually detects bid wars, and actually, it recognizes bid wars, and then it just be like, "Yep, nope, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna hold the price where it is, and we're just gonna let these people sell out, and then we'll continue afterwards."
Yeah, that is really cool. because I know there are some softwares, like let's say I use Be Cool, you have the option to, once you get down to your minimum price, like I set minimum and maximum prices, because I'll buy a book for 15 and say, oh, this should sell between 45 and 60. So I'll set a minimum max price.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you start that undercutting, you can, when you get to the bottom, you can actually just raise it back to the top and start it over, which is kind of an interesting thing. But this next part of this interview, I kind of want to transition to how we would get into the bulk business model. So I hope that that set of questions was helpful for just kind of the way that you run the business, because those are questions I have. But for most people, they're going to get an Amazon FBA by watching a Steve Rakin video, Romer the Romer, and they're going to be like, all right, I'm going to go to a thrift store, use Scout IQ or Scally, scan books, bring them home, ship them to Amazon. Someone like that who's watching this video now, it's like, whoa, Dave's killing it. He's a 7-figure bookseller. I got to stop doing the scanning at a thrift store. I need to go upstream, or I need to find more bulk. What is like the biggest challenge, the first challenge going from being that thrifting mindset or mentality to then saying, I'm going to be a bulk bookseller? Like, what's the number one challenge to bridge that gap to become a bulk?
The number one challenge is really just finding inventory. That's always been, a struggle. And even when you're in the business, depending on, again, how you monetize, that could remain a struggle, right?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people that watch the video, and I'm just going to be completely honest, you got to kind of figure out where you want to be in the book business. And when I say that, is like, there's nothing wrong with just staying at a cherry picker level. There's really not. Like, when I was cherry picking, I was like cracking an extra $3K a month is what I was bringing home for just working one weekend. Yeah, every weekend. That's basically it. So that was pretty good. So there's nothing wrong with that. But then there's also there's a transitional phase. You just can't go from like cherry picker straight to bulk.
Right, exactly.
In other seminars that I've done, I've always talked about this. There's 3 modes in book selling, right? You're the cherry picker. Okay, that's one mode. And then you're in baby bulk. That's the second mode. Baby bulk. And then finally you transition to full bulk. Okay, full bulk should be the final transition if you want to go replace whatever job you're at, whatever career you're at.
Gotcha.
Right?
That makes sense.
I feel like a lot of times book selling, though, is a supplement of income. So it doesn't necessarily need to go all the way there. But if you wanted to, you need to look at finding a lot of books.
Yeah.
A lot of times. That's
a great response. I started out doing it part-time. Right? I started out 6-7 years ago when I was still a college student, and then became a high school teacher, and allowed me to make a lot of extra money and save a lot of money for my teaching job, allowed me to reach financial independence. My wife at an early time. So, and I recently just went full-time, right? So yeah, I mean, that's the beauty about books, is it could be an awesome supplemental income. It doesn't need to be the number one thing, but if you want it to, obviously we have people with multiple ways. We got people doing Whatnot, making a full-time income, bulk books doing a full-time income, online book arbitrage, making a full-time income, thrifting books. Like but like FBA Dave says, you got to pick, what's your niche? Like, what do you want to do?
Exactly.
Now, landing that first supplier is probably the most difficult thing, as you mentioned. So any tips for a bookseller getting into bulk books that, for landing that first supplier?
You got to persevere. Yeah. You got to be like the most annoying fly ever and not die. Just to give an analogy, I landed my first bulk account, and it took me 1.5 years to get that bulk account.
Yeesh.
Okay. It was no joke. Like, there was no other. I didn't know anybody. No one was willing to help me. So I was just like kept knocking on doors. And this one particular place, I really wanted to do business with them because their books were so good. And I'm like, oh, please give me all your books. And they wouldn't do it. And every time I'm there, I asked for the manager. And every time, the floor manager would rotate and they would talk to me. It's like, it's you again. I thought I told you last week, that's not what we do. And then one day, this one stocking girl, wasn't even a manager, that I talked to, like, I want to buy a crap ton of books. Like, can you sell them to me like that? She talked to the right person, and that right person then talked to me, and then we just started doing it, and that's when it happened.
That's crazy.
So you're gonna have a lot of people that's gonna block you. There's a ton of people that's gonna tell you no, and the same people will tell you no every week. That's what happened to me every week. But eventually, something's gonna break, and there's your opportunity.
There you go. So that's the reality of it, everyone. So I always tell people it's not easy. Even online book arbitrage is not easy, but persistence is key, right? In any week of life. Now, when you're starting out, obviously you're not gonna have a warehouse. So can you run a baby bulk operation out of a garage, out of a storage unit? What would you recommend for bulk?
If you have a really big garage, you can do a baby bulk out of a really big garage.
Okay.
Like a 3-car garage is what I would say, like, is a big garage,
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would recommend doing it in a storage unit. That's what I did.
Okay.
At one point I had 3 storage units.
Ooh, all next to each other?
Nope, that was not
Oh.
fun. Yeah, that was not fun. That was boy, that was some times.
That must
I
have been a merchant fulfilled nightmare for shipping, right?
We didn't have, merchant fulfilled at that
Okay,
time.
back then.
Yeah,
Okay.
'cause,
Thank
yeah,
God.
that would not make sense.
That'd be, oh, it's in the one down there, or this one's in the one down.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I have a lot of stories about that, but no, generally speaking, if you wanna do baby bulk and you wanna try it, then a big garage or, a decent sized storage unit,
Yeah,
okay? And
makes sense.
don't try to have a large MF operation, just
Yeah.
one small bookshelf if you had to, you know?
Okay.
I was just focused on FBA at that point.
Okay. Sounds good. And if you do go the baby bulk model, you would recommend almost all FBA.
Yeah, so I would
Okay.
recommend almost all FBA. There are gonna be some long tail books that are worth
Right.
holding, right?
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I'm talking these books that have to be at least $50 plus for you to be
Yeah.
holding it.
Yeah. Makes a ton of sense. What would you consider like a long tail book? I mean, I think of books in terms of, yeah, how long I think they're likely to sell, not necessarily off a sales rank, because I do sell books that have, sales rank 2, 3, 4, 6 million, even books that don't have any sales rank. Like I
Right.
sell. But what would you consider long tail?
So a lot of people would say like long tail is about a year.
Okay.
I actually, and it may be because, I am in bulk, but long tail for me is roughly about 6 months.
6 months. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So any book that takes longer than 6 months to sell for me is too long.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense.
And this also includes, like we also sell a lot of antiquarian books via eBay, right?
Nice.
So eBay is where we sell a lot of antiquarian books. But we pick them in a sense where like it has to sell within 6 months too,
Right. Yeah.
and
Makes sense.
the most popular antiquarian books, the titles and everything, those matter, and especially when it comes to eBay, you're spending a lot more time than you do Amazon to list things up. Okay. So you definitely want to cash flow back as fast as you can as well. So
Makes sense.
yeah, 6 months is
And
really what I would consider long.
in those listings, the antiquarian books, I'm assuming you're taking pictures of those, right?
Yes, yes, yep.
Yeah, okay. So it's not just like a stock photo like a lot of bulk booksellers do.
No, 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 no. It's a lot of pictures. It's a lot of fine points. Honestly, within the bulk book business, the antiquarian side is kind of like a whole like a sub business in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you leveraged, like, how have you educated yourself on which of those books are good? Like, for example, I interviewed Max Ruback, who's, I'm not sure if you heard of Max, but he's great in that way.
Yeah.
You use Max, or like, how have you educated yourself on, okay, these certain antiquarian books are ones we need to look at and need.
So it took me a good while. I would say between 4 to 6 months. But it's all self education.
Okay.
Yep. And so well then Dave, what does that mean? How do you do it? You take a stack of old books,
Yeah.
put them next to you, and you start doing this, typing it in.
Time with that.
Yep. But hopefully, some people might not, but hopefully within that time frame, you start recognizing certain patterns.
Yeah.
Right. You start recognizing certain publishers, certain patterns, certain authors. And now it's a lot faster for me. I mean, I throw away like 95% of books without even having to research it anymore.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Incredible. So you've done, and so, a theme that's continuing to show up to everyone is just a lot of work, right? Just a lot of grit.
Absolutely.
Grinding, right? And that's what's needed. Now, we talked about baby bulk. Let's say you start the operation out of a garage or out of your house because, or out of a storage unit because you want to see if the model works. You're starting to get success. When's the next step to a warehouse? At what point are you like, okay, this needs to go to a warehouse?
So when you consistently can get inventory, so baby bulk is when I would imagine you are accumulating large amounts of inventory somewhere on a regular basis.
Okay.
Okay. So that's the definition of baby bulk. So taking it one step further, you need to have either A, more of those, okay, or B, land yourself a huge bulk account, okay,
Okay.
that can consistently provide you with the books that you need to go into bulk, right?
Right.
But it's kind of like a simultaneous thing too, which makes it difficult because you have to be ready to receive before you receive it.
Okay.
You get what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
in other words, you can't go to say like Goodwill, right? You can't go to a huge Goodwill distribution center and be like, yeah, man, I want to do business with you. I'm going to go ahead and take your truckloads, and they go, here you go, pick it up tomorrow. I'm like, oh, I don't have a warehouse yet. What am I going to do, right?
Right.
And that's another thing too. Getting a warehouse sometimes is not easy,
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to like be on faith, like this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go out and try to get an account. But before then, I'm going to have everything set up. I'm going to have my recycling set up. I'm going to have my warehouse set up. And that's kind of like a leap of faith.
Yeah. Could you give us an idea of what you might expect for rent and other utilities? Because I mean, obviously it probably matters, like location probably matters a lot, but
Yeah.
can you tell us in terms of like how large is your warehouse? And if you don't mind telling us like how much you pay in rent, that'd be awesome.
Yeah,
But
that's cool.
what would you expect to pay in rent? And then are there other utilities, or is it like you just pay rent and then you're good?
Oh no, there's everything. There is everything. Um, so my first warehouse was 1,500 square foot.
Okay.
Okay, and that was roughly about 1,800 a month is what I pay for that.
Okay.
Okay, so that's depending on where you are, that could be high or low. Um, and then my current warehouse is I have two now.
Nice.
Yeah, one's outbound, like all the storage of the books is there and all the shipping, and then the other one's inbound. So like it's where we receive and sort everything. Combined, it's roughly about 11 to 12,000 square feet,
Okay.
right?
That's a lot.
Uh,
Yeah.
but I'm paying actually sub market rent on that. And yeah. So I'll tell you the story in a second. So roughly about 8,000 is what I pay,
Okay.
right? So I'll go from over $1 a square foot to way under $1 a square foot,
Okay. Yeah.
right? And the reason why is because I found this particular landlord of these warehouses during the time of COVID,
Oh, okay.
right?
Yeah.
Um, I landed my huge bulk deal during the time of COVID. That's why they were willing to talk to me. So yeah, all that's just starting to make
Makes
sense,
sense.
right? And they like me so much that they never actually changed the rent.
Oh, cool.
Right. So they had low rent to begin with because they're like, oh crap, we're in COVID. We don't know when this is gonna end. We need to fill the
Right.
vacant warehouses. So I'm in. They like me. They keep it. They kept it at the same rate for like the past like 4 years now. So
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's huge. That's great. And then what other utilities would you have to pay besides just rent?
right. So you have electrical, right?
Okay.
Um, you have internet.
Okay. And what
Yep.
roughly, if you don't mind, like roughly what would these be? I'm sorry if I'm just like super diving your business.
No,
I'm
no,
just
you're fine. So
crazy.
I mean, internet. So it's not one location; it's two locations. So that's
Okay.
roughly about like 250 a month, right?
Okay.
Um, electrical. During the spring and the fall, it's nothing. It's fine. For both warehouses, we're talking maybe like $200, $300, somewhere around there. Then you get into the winter,
Cold.
and you're talking 1,600 a month.
Oh, why? Because it's so cold you have to heat it up. Is that what?
Yep,
Oh my gosh.
yep.
And
Now we're in the summer, right? And I haven't looked at it yet because I'm afraid to, but I think it's like somewhere between like around 8 to 900 a month,
okay.
right?
Do you have the DC going, stuff like that? Or
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeast. So this is starting to add up, FBA dude.
It does.
You guys
It
still
does add
a
up.
lot of books.
A lot of people don't think about that, and even if you can work through it. Oh, that's another thing. You can't do bulk alone, by the way.
Yeah. Okay.
You can't, right? You need help. So even if you could work through the code and you could work through the heat, doesn't mean that your employee, your wife, your kid is going to want to work through all that. You're like, the heck with this. See you later. Peace.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I always thought about that in my own life, where even if I try to help people sell books on Amazon in my own life, a lot of people just aren't interested in it. They don't have the same grit, the same grind, right? And but you got to understand that as an entrepreneur, you're usually built differently than just the sort of average person. Not that that's bad, but you're right. Like the average person you're bringing into your warehouse is not going to want to be wearing, 3 jackets. And they want to come to a nice, yeah, or they're just not going to show up to work, or they go find another job, right?
Yeah. I mean, turnaround is definitely a thing too,
Yeah.
and that's another conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there any gotta have it equipment when it comes to running a bulk operation? So like I'm assuming from just your Instagram reels, like there's a bunch of books that are like dumped out onto this conveyor belt, makes its way down. Excuse it, makes its way down, and then there's someone to sort it. So like what is the like you're not a bulk book business seller unless you have blank.
So you need minimum a forklift.
Okay.
Okay. Forklift, pallet jack, a tilting mechanism, and a sorting table. Those are basically your minimums.
That's your minimum. Okay.
Obviously, some computers as well, but yeah, those would be your minimums.
And those all got a cost? Are those things you could buy secondhand? Or those like brand new you have to buy?
You could buy it secondhand. I bought just about all of them secondhand.
Okay.
And luckily they've all lasted me a good bit. So, but yeah, so forklift that'll cost you anywhere from 5 to 10K secondhand.
Second.
Secondhand, yeah, brand new. You're
Oh my
talking
gosh.
like 20 to 30 plus.
Oh gosh. Dave. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm now remembering why I didn't want to go the bulk book route. I was just like,
It's not for everybody.
yeah,
It's not for everybody. Especially if people watch this, they'd be like, "The heck with that," you
yeah,
know? "The heck with
it's
that."
so much overhead. On the same time, on the other hand, 99% of booksellers now who are watching this probably gonna be like, yeah, it's not for me. That means there's opportunity, right?
It is.
You put in the work, right? I mean, there's a lot of overhead, but clearly you're still profitable and you're making it work. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here.
Right.
Now let's talk about employees.
Yes.
So how many employees currently are working for you? You know, do you pay them hourly, and do you have any incentives built in for them?
Currently, it's 11 employees.
Okay, between the two warehouses, like 5 and 6.
Right, between the 2 warehouses, right. And the incentive is you get to keep your job.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
It's
hourly
difficult,
pay.
man. It's really difficult. The good thing is, and this goes into efficient processes, you you need to create processes, for us, for the most sellers, create the process where you can slot anybody in.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So that means, if Joe decides to like, Dave, I don't like your attitude today. Peace out, and he's out, then I'll be like, all right, Dan, come on in. There you
Yeah,
go. This is what you do. Bing, bing, bing. All right, I got it.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's basically it.
And I imagine that getting your process at scale to be that good is tremendously challenging.
It is challenging. It eats up a lot of your time and then also eats up a lot of cash flow as well. You wouldn't think about it, but to get your process correct, you actually have to suffer through non-efficient work
Yeah,
environment, right? And that will destroy your cash flow for a while until you get your process correct.
yeah,
And when you get your process correct, meaning like this is how much inventory you're coming in on a pretty regular basis. Okay, this is how many employees you need. This is the output of your employees, et cetera, et cetera. A whole lot of metrics, that you got to run through. But, eventually you will get to the point where like, okay, this is the sweet spot. If I have 5.25 employees, then I can do this, which will equate to this amount of revenue,
right.
which will equate to how much in my pocket, right? 'Cause, it's math at that point.
Yeah, it makes sense. Still getting to there just blows my mind how many systems you need to be working well. Now, do
Mhm.
you pay hourly, and is it like a minimum wage sort of job, or do you pay better than minimum wage? And then do you have different tiers for workers? Like, is there a manager and then
Yeah.
workers? Like,
Right. So I have one warehouse manager, right? He
okay,
obviously gets better than the others.
yeah,
But everybody else is probably more on the minimum wage scale, unless
yeah,
you have been with me for a little bit.
okay,
I've been very fortunate to have excellent employees that
awesome,
have stayed with me for a long time.
nice,
They also hope to stay there's a lot of students, right? You're going to have
yeah,
a lot of students, doing this. So they want a job that can be flexible,
yeah,
right?
and
So I'm flexible enough that, hey, when you start school, we could transition you to part-time hours and I'll get somebody to fill in the other shifts. And then when you're out of school, I'll fire some people and we'll get you back to full-time.
yeah, there you go.
Oh,
And then how are you finding the workers in town? Is it like a temp agency you go through, Craigslist ads, Facebook ads? Like, how are you finding people?
so supermarkets, Dunkin' Donuts.
You just show up and say, "Hey, you want a job?"
I mean, so can I say this?
I hope so.
So you go into the supermarket, right? Or it doesn't have to be the supermarket. I usually use the supermarket only because like it's work. And you just kind of like take a look at the faces of the employees.
Uh-huh.
And what you're looking for is anguish, Joji. What you're looking for, Joji.
Oh gosh, they give her anguish.
Right.
Okay.
And then you give them a way out.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right.
Here's a better opportunity.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
then you go like, hey, this is what I do. You like it? Give me a call.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's almost like you're offering a job per se. And then do you require an interview, or you're just like you're just gonna let them see, you're just gonna see how they work, and then you.
I mean, we go through an interview process
Okay.
too,
Yeah.
but it's not like again, like once you tweak the process to the point where like anybody could be slotted in, it's not like you're hiring a rocket scientist or anything like
Yeah.
that.
Exactly. There's nothing wrong with that. You're helping someone find a better opportunity. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. That's great.
And then Dunkin' Donuts too.
Okay.
They have to wake up like ass crack early in the morning.
Okay. I
A
did
lot of
not know
people.
that. I'm assuming because the donuts, right? So
Oh my goodness. I think like between 3 to 4 a.m. is when they need to be at work,
okay.
right? And they hate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They hate it.
Can imagine. I had to
Right.
wake up 6 a.m. to go to school, and I'm like, I hate it sometimes, but
Mhm,
that's
mhm.
nothing. That's
Yeah.
nothing compared to. Okay. And they're also getting paid minimum wage as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. So like, well, How I start. Well,
Yeah.
I got this thing. You want to come check it out sometime?
Check it out.
My number.
I run a bulk book operation. They're like, what does that even mean? How many of your employees are actually from that strategy?
2.
Few of them? 2? Okay. That's crazy.
But I shared the strategy with some of my other followers,
Okay.
and it's worked for them.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm in that position where I hate my job and someone offers me a job, I'll give you a call.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
at the very least, you offering an opportunity that they can at least check out, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't need a rocket scientist. You just need somebody that's willing to put in the work.
And follow systems. That's
and follow systems. That's essentially it, right? If you can follow systems and you can show up for work, you're hired.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it makes sense. Now, people on my YouTube channel, on the Amazon forums, books are dead. We've got Kindle. People don't read physical books. And I personally don't believe that at all. What's your 5 to 10 year outlook for the viability of used book selling?
I don't think books are going anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I think there is a struggle in the electronics market to keep up with the pace of books.
Yeah.
Right. So there's still a lot of publishing going on, and not everybody wants to hold a tablet in their hands. Right.
Yeah.
So there's cases like my wife. I'll take my wife for an example. She's an avid reader. She loves reading books, and there's a lot of times where it's really convenient for her to have the tablet. But that's only because Kindle has a lot of deals, right? And then she can also quote unquote, rent books from the library.
Yeah.
Electronically, right? So basically, it's a cost thing at that point, right? But if all costs were equal, if Kindle didn't have a discount on certain books per se, 100% people would rather have the actual book in their hand.
And beyond that, I mean, I personally just like opening a book and just reading it. That's just me. And there's people the other way, but there's over 100 million books listed on Amazon.
Oh yeah.
Bulk book business sellers. You've got online book arbitrage sellers, whatnot sellers, eBay, antiquarian. I mean, there's so many book sellers. I don't see how anyone can say that book's going to be dead in 5 to 10 years. Although people tell me that all the time, and I go, well, all I can say is good luck and no hard feelings. But it's an incredible opportunity in my opinion.
I think it's a little surreal too, to be honest. If you would have told me 5 years ago that I'd be selling books full time,
yeah,
I would have told you something else. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of surreal because when I first got into it, watching a whole lot of like YouTube videos and whatnot, I couldn't believe it. Just probably like somebody is watching this video now, they go like, no way, you can't sell a book and actually make a living out of it. Like that's ridiculous. You can't do that, until you try it, and the next thing you know, you're hooked. And you're doing it and you keep doing it. You want more. Then you want to go bulk and you call me and be like, how do I do this? And that's how it goes.
Yep. And guys, remember, FBA Dave's going to be at the, Books and Beyond Resellers Conference. I mean, he's going to be there. Like you guys will have seen him on video. You can check out his Instagram page. But if you go to that conference, which I'd highly recommend, I mean, you could talk to him on a maybe one-on-one or with you and a couple other people, but you can ask him questions and I'm sure he'd be more willing to give maybe even more in-depth answers or help you out because you're actually there. But
oh yeah, and I got some stories too, boy. I got stories.
Yeah, I have a question later on I want to hear some stories.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any systems that took a really long time for you to master, or just a bunch of tweaks just to get right? Something in particular you can think of?
Yeah, it's a bunch of tweaks to get it right. But one of the biggest things, and even bulk sellers included, it's the output flow, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how much time should one employee take to completely go through one Gaylord?
Okay.
Yeah. And that's a thing. And I used to think that we were really slow. Okay. And some people that I see like, holy crap, your one guy goes through 8 Gaylords in a day, right?
That seems like a lot.
It seems like a lot. So one thing, and it goes way back to when we started talking about all this, not every bulk business is built the same.
Right. It makes sense. Right. Yep.
So we did need some tweaks though. We were still going really slow. Finding out that there were some things that was like, this doesn't really work because if I put them together, they just keep talking.
I was a high school teacher. I know that, hey, exactly. People sit together, they ain't getting anything done.
Right. If you separate them, they actually perform better.
Yeah.
right? So just to give you a little anecdote, one of the tweaks that we had made to increase our productivity was that instead of having two people work on one Gaylord at a time on a scanning table, we separated them. And one person did the same amount of work as three people.
That's crazy. Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Right. And that really made a huge difference in our cash flow, made a huge difference in my overall business.
Yeah.
Right. And that was the biggest tweak.
Right. Wow. Is there anything that still just is a major headache for you? This is something you always need to deal with?
Balancing is still kind of like a big headache.
Okay.
And I always feel like we're playing catch up because, and a lot of time is really due to, your supplier. When your supplier calls and knocks on your door and say, take this, you're not going to tell them no.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you guys right now, telling your supplier no is not the right answer.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You always have to tell them yes. So then you're always figuring out, well, where am I going to put this? If you watch my Instagram, right, you all see me all the time. I'm like stressing because like I have like 200 Gaylords in the warehouse and I don't know where to put it, and I'm stressing. So those are the issues. That's kind of constant. So then you got to kind of like crack the whip on your production. It's like, all right, guys, instead of like each one of you doing like 4 a day now, you got to do like 6 a day. We need to catch up. But then that creates more load on the shipping side. So now instead of like, hey, instead of listing 300 books a day, now you got to list 500 a day, right?
Yeah.
So it's a huge strain on the overall system of things.
Yeah.
So that's a constant thing. So we're working on some things to be able to quell that, and I think it's working out. But we could talk about that at the conference, though.
That makes sense. I recently also interviewed Vishal Moody. I'm not sure how familiar you are with Vishal, but
I've seen him on social media once or twice. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's a bulk bookseller out of Canada. He sells in the U.S. marketplace. Are there any other bulk booksellers you recommend, like they might be interested in an interview as well? Just because, this was extremely insightful, but are there any ones out there as well that are willing to be so insightful and share information? Can't think of it. Just you.
So I honestly can't. And one of the reasons, like, I feel a lot of bulk booksellers are very like to themselves.
Okay.
Like they don't really want to share anything. And then two, a lot of the ones that I know that I had followed when I'm coming up as a bulk seller is actually out of business.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's unfortunate. Changes of Amazon, they just weren't able to keep up with a lot of those systematic changes. And unfortunately that happened. So I really don't know of any.
Yeah. Yeah, no worries. Yeah. That's cool. So at the Books and Beyond Resellers Conference, we're going to have Vishal, we're going to have FBA Dave there. We're going to have Reezy Resells, who used to have a bulk operation before COVID. And then we're also going to have John Muscarello, Side Hustle Experiment. He used to have a bulk operation and then decided to go into traditional online arbitrage. And that's going to kind of round out our bulk model there, bulk business model. So make sure you guys grab your tickets. They're never going to be cheaper, right? They only go up in price for, a little bit like a month and a half away. So again, really excited for that. Last question. Again, thank you so much for, spending time with us. I've learned a lot. I'm sure a lot of people learn a lot. Last question for you. I think I know the answer to this, but what's the craziest thing you've ever found in a Gaylord, or the craziest thing you've ever found in?
The craziest thing I've ever found in my entire career as a bookseller, let's say, right, is a JFK book.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. So it's a JFK book. It was the first book that he ever wrote while he was still in school. It was published after he was out of school, and he signed it.
Whoa. Okay. That's so cool.
Yeah, that was the craziest thing, and I sold it for $6,500.
Whoa. $6,500.
Yep.
That's incredible. I just imagine the pathway of this book since that time, right? Like where it's been, how it eventually got there, and all these people just pass it over, and here you are. How did you identify? Like, how did you go about knowing this was a special book?
Again, one of those things. Stack of books. Let's go.
Whoa, $6,500. That's incredible.
Well, at first, honestly, there was no price tag on it because, like, I've not seen a comparison to it.
Okay.
But I was like, that's for like $3,000, so let's double it. And so somebody bought it.
That's crazy. Oh, you listed on eBay, I'm assuming, right?
It was eBay, yeah. eBay, yep.
That's incredible. I thought you were gonna say there's an Instagram reel you had made about finding like I think $500 in a book or something like that.
Oh no! So in the Gaylord, we found a currency book, right? Which has like collectible currency that talks about collectible currencies in there, and inside those pages was like $100 bills, $50 bills.
That's crazy.
Shook it all out. We took like an hour to like comb through every page, and it was over $2,000.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was over $2,000. It was nuts.
Insane.
Yeah, that's the most amount of cash that I found in a book.
I've never found any money in a book, and I do online book arbitrage, so my prep center sees all the books, so it might be pocketing some cash here and there.
You never know.
Actually, it's good for them, right? If they find it. It's considered a tip for all the work that they do for us. But
That's awesome, man.
Dave, this was an absolutely awesome time for me. I got to learn a lot about the book operation. Again, guys, get your tickets to Books and Beyond Resellers Conference, September 13th through 15th. Prices are only ever going to go up, and you're going to meet awesome people like FBA Dave, Reese Resells, Caleb Roth, Steve Rakin, Victor Gallegos, Mel from back from Burnham. There's so many people. So, with that said, we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.
Thank you.